Last year, for many months, this is how I meditated. Sitting against a wall, hugging my knees into my chest, and feeling the safety of my arms wrapped around my legs. And I did this because I had recently had a huge upwelling of trauma, and it didn't feel safe to me to sit cross-legged on the floor. It didn't feel safe to me to have my back open to the air. And I just felt better protecting my chest and my belly and my wrists. So this might be really hard to understand if you don't have post-traumatic stress disorder or haven't had a really messed up childhood or experienced a lot of violence in your life, but actually many people have. And I was reminded of that last week when an old client of mine from my yoga studio in Sydney reached out and asked me a really important question. And I'm making this video in response to that question to her, and also to everybody out there that sees their personal trauma as an obstacle to meditation. Because truly, when practiced in the right way, our past, our suffering, our trauma can be really a vehicle for awakening. So this client has been finally starting to implement a daily meditation practice, and for everybody who has tried, you know how very difficult a task this is. So congratulations to her and you if you've done it. But she sat down to meditate, closed her eyes, and all the old trauma came up for her. And she doesn't feel safe, and her question was, how can she continue on with a daily meditation practice when that is the reality? The first thing I want to say about how we can meditate with trauma is that we kind of throw away the regular rules. You don't have to sit cross-legged on the floor. Like I said, I meditated in bed for a long time, and I may have either had my legs out straight like this, or I was hugged in like I showed you before. Another great idea is to just sit cozily in a chair, wrap yourself in a blanket. And the other really, really big tip is to keep your eyes open. Then, in trauma, what we want to do is we want to stay with the body. You know, we have this human animal body and it gets really spooked. The nervous system gets really spooked. And I won't talk too much about that in this video because I do it in many other places. But a lot of that is it keeps us perpetually up here in the mind because we're trying to prepare for what is scary. We're trying to keep ourselves safe, basically. So we can do two things with that. We can say, thank you for keeping me safe. I appreciate it. It's no longer necessary right now because right now I'm meditating. And then the second tool is to stay down here in the body. We're going to keep trauma wants to keep us going back up in the mind, but we want to do as much as we can and work equally as hard to get out of there and down here into the body. So our meditation becomes about the body. My meditation history, as many of you do know, is in the Buddhist style. And so what we can look at is that the Buddha taught there are four foundations of mindfulness. And they are body, feeling, tone, mind, and dharmas. And when we are traumatized or afraid, we just stay with that first foundation of mindfulness. We stay with the body. And it took me a long time to accept that staying with mindfulness of the body is not a lesser practice. You know, it's like in yoga and Buddhist practice, we're always thinking about getting to these like high states of concentration. And what I've really discovered over the last year of doing predominantly or mostly or completely body practices is that I can actually go deeper by staying right here in this human physical form. That being up in the mind may lead to sort of pleasant and spacey states of consciousness, but to do the same thing in the body is a little more, perhaps a little more difficult and not as sexy, but it really is a grounded kind of consciousness. It's grounded, it's solid, it's stable, it's right here. I love to remind myself that the Buddha actually said that the whole of the Dharma can be revealed in this fathom-long body. And fathom is a measurement, right? Fathom long is a measurement they used to use in ancient India. But the whole of the Dharma, so every teaching, all of the truth of existence can be found by contemplating this body. You know, the ancient yogis, when the Buddha was alive, they were a lot of them were more around self-mortification and asceticism and kind of denying the body. You know, going into these high states of meditation, but, you know, almost like leaving the body behind. But the whole of the practice is right here in the body. So, let's do it. Let's get into the body. I think the first thing I would like to do with you is to remind you to get a posture that feels really safe. So get rid of any ideas that you have around kind of this perfect posture. And let's find something instead that feels completely supported. For me, that usually is back against a chair or a wall. And it usually means I have some kind of bent leg or protective situation. I actually sometimes even meditate like this. The key points maybe that we should talk about are, wherever you are, keep the spine like erect and straight, so it's aligned from base chakra to crown chakra, right? That's important, but you can do that in a lot of different ways. So you might even be something like this. And then wherever you are, just rub your back against something, whether it's the wall or the chair. Or if you don't have one, if you do actually feel fine on the floor, maybe you just rub your butt along the floor. Just really actually ground yourself into the body. Take a couple big deep breaths. And then let's see if we can keep the eyes open. Another great tactic may be to take a hand on the belly, a hand on the heart, or both hands on the belly. And my eyes are open, but they're downcast, right? They're kind of gazing down between my feet. And then it's good to check in to see where you are. And by where you are, I mean, what is the state? What is the level of panic, of tension, of stress? Sometimes most likely we don't even really know. We're just kind of like running at this underlying panic mode. Until we check in, we don't really know. And this kind of panic mode actually is what stops us from sitting to meditate, because it's almost too overwhelming to check in. So we want to gently, carefully check in. A really great sign that we're running in panic mode is that the belly does not expand when we breathe in. So checking in, you don't have to try to make it expand, just look, is the belly expanding? Is it expanding easily? Then we can kind of check in. I mean, I'm pretty relaxed right now. I already had my meditation today, but how is it for you? I know a lot of the clients that I work with, they're almost too panicked to take a deep breath in, right? So if I tell them to start their meditation with a nice deep breath, it kind of makes them freak out a little bit, or they feel inadequate, or it just doesn't, they can kind of like force a breath into the belly, but it doesn't feel safe and it doesn't feel natural. So if that's where you are, if you go to check in and that's what's happening, I think the best place to start is with an eye scan. So really what we're doing here is we're being mindful of sight. So we can look at this through the lens of Buddhism. We're going to be mindfulness of the body through mindfulness of sight. Or we can just say we're doing a scan with the eyes. So what we're doing is we're going to look all the way to one side. And we're just going to scan. Let's say we do it from left to right. And we just start to look. We're not labeling anything. We're looking purely at sight. Like, are there different shapes or colors or textures? And without naming them, we're just being curious. What's there? Sometimes when we are quite panicked, we scan really quickly. And we're not fully taking things in. We're just kind of quickly hitting each object. The eyes kind of dart around a little bit more. So see if you can take a couple breaths as you do this, and then we'll start to come back from right to left again. And see if you can look a little bit deeper. Maybe you linger for a minute on something and check in a little more to something you hadn't seen before. Maybe a reflection of light. Maybe there's a mark on the floor or the wall. Again, we're not naming anything, we're not telling stories about what we see, we're simply seeing. Mindfulness of sight. You can look again from left to right. Letting yourself take time. Maybe even beginning to expand so that your view takes in the periphery of what you see. So not just the objects in the distance, but the periphery, all the way to the edges of the eyes. And take it back again from right to left. I'm going to give you just another minute or two to keep looking without story, to simply see. Spending as much time as you like to look further, to look deeper, to look wider. And then maybe checking in with the belly again. Has that process of simply looking made a difference to the way the belly can expand as you breathe? Are there other parts of the body that are a little more relaxed, like the shoulders and the hand and the jaw? Again, just keep the eyes open. Instead of closing them, just gaze softly at the floor. It can be a little more difficult to learn to meditate with the eyes open. But with trauma, it's really rather helpful. Good. So that is a brilliant way to begin any meditation when we are feeling panicked or afraid or a little stressed. One of the other great tactics we can use in trauma is to feel the grounding of the seat. So we really actually, as we first come and sit down to meditate, whether we have the leg up or the legs out or however we're doing it, it's not important. We just feel the contact of the base of the body against the cushion or the floor. So for me, I usually close my eyes and sense my glute muscles pushing in. I sense the pressure that they make, the contact that they make with the chair. Often as well, I'm doing so with my feet, like feeling the foot against the floor of the chair. And I keep bringing my awareness, no matter how many times it wanders away, I keep bringing my awareness back into the foot, back into the butt, into the back against the wall. We just keep feeling back against the wall, butt against the chair or the floor, feet wherever they rest. I might notice my hands and whatever they're touching. And then I notice my breath. Eyes are softly open, just gazing down at the floor as we rotate through this sensation. Back against the wall, butt against the floor or the chair, feet wherever they're touching, and hands wherever they are. Noticing the breath. Noticing back, the pressure, the warmth. Noticing the butt where it makes contact, the pressure, the warmth, the tingling. The feet. Are there parts that feel cool or hot? The hands. And the breath. And then we can start to layer our awareness in further or more. So as we feel into the back, we might notice which parts are touching and which aren't. And how do we know? Where's the boundary of the body? With your awareness, with your concentration, fully investigating the back against the wall, the chair, or whatever it's touching. How does that sensation change as we breathe? And coming down to where the glutes are making contact with the floor or the chair. How do we know which parts are touching, which are not? Do we know through heat, through coolness, pressure or spaciousness? Keep layering your attention deeper and deeper into the sensation of touch. Feeling into the feet. Can you find the outline or the boundary of the feet and feel through all of it, the outside edge of the little toe, the spaces between each toe? Can you physically feel the arch of the foot, or can you just sense where it is in space? Feeling the other foot. Finding the big toe, the little toe, the heel. feeling the hands. What are they touching? What are they not touching? Is there sensation in the nail bed of the left little finger? Coming back to the breath. Can you feel the fullness of the breath being experienced in the whole posture of sitting? The body is sitting. The body is breathing all the way to fingers and toes. Don't let the mind wander away. Keep bringing it back into the body, however you can keep it here, through seeking out a finger, a toe, a knee, an elbow, a wrist. Keep searching for and staying with sensation in the whole body. So that is our second tactic. And there are many more than 3, but the third one is if you're trying to do this kind of body scan and it's not working, then you can use your own hands to intensify the sensation. So what that might look like is either starting from the top or the bottom, your choice. Let's start from the top. We're not going to do the whole thing. I'm just going to show you a little bit of how. And you take your hands, and let's say we start with the top of the head, and you simply start to just touch. And the touch is up to you. You know, you can be quite firm and really scratch so that you can feel it. And you're going to do kind of one section, so the top of the head, for example, the temples, the hairlines, and then maybe even the earlobes and the ears. And you touch, really staying with the perspective of the head and ears itself. So your awareness is really feeling the touch from the perspective of the body, not the hands. And then after you have touched for a little bit, you simply let go, relax, and feel the effects of the touch. So is the scalp tingling? Are the ears tingling? Is there heat, lightness, pleasure? Can still check in to those spaces like the back and the glutes on the floor and the breath. And then after a little bit, we move on to the next part that we'll touch. So if we were working from head to toe, we might just start with the face. And depending on how much time you have, you know, you can touch the whole face and then put the hands down and feel, or you can just do like forehead and then feel, and then nose and then feel. But if you do the whole body head to toe, it might take you 30 minutes. And that in itself is a fantastic mindfulness practice. Maybe not traditional, but has worked really wonderfully for me as I have had more trauma arise in this last year. So really the whole theme of what we're doing is staying really grounded and present through the body. At first, staying with the body seems more difficult and perhaps I think maybe more tedious and can be misunderstood as a lesser practice. But when we get really good at this, when this becomes a practice and we start to really feel the whole body, and when we can sit for 30 minutes of meditation, feeling our little toe and our heel and our knee and our chest and whatever else, life becomes a much more pleasurable experience. As we learn to be with what's happening, we learn to be with walking, with drinking, with showering, with listening and seeing. So to me, trauma has been a huge vehicle to a real, true embodied practice. And I hope what I've shared with you today is helpful in understanding that it can be the same for you. Let's take a deep breath in and feel our whole body from head to toe. And may the fruits of our practice help to end suffering and violence everywhere, so that all beings can be safe, so that all beings may be well, so that all beings will be free. Namaste.